Ladies and gentlemen, direct from the bar.
What's the song? Gotta be a way of quitting. Don't send that boy up in that crate. He's still got the piano in it.
Boom!
Embrace me.
Boom, 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 boom. That's a timpani.
My sweet embrace of you. You need another boom. Embrace me. My irreplaceable you. Just one look at you. My heart grows tipsy in me. Use and use alone.
Use and use alone?
Bring out a gypsy in me. Hey, Sam!
What?
I love all the many charms about you. Above all, I want my arms about you. Don't be a naughty baby. Come to daddy, do.
Nothing happened.
My sweet brace him.
What?
Embrace.
Okay, so I'm Jessica Martin and I am an entertainer. I think that's the umbrella term because I do a number of things and they all involve pretty much performing. So I'm first and foremost an actress, mainly musical theatre. I'm a singer. I'm an impressionist, and that links to the Judy Garland side of my performing that we'll talk about later. And in latter years, I have taken up writing and illustrating comics as well. So I entertain on the page. That's
fantastic. Me. Is there anything that you haven't done that you'd like to do? Probably the best thing to start with.
I was thinking about, there's no time to start taking up other hobbies, but I would like to try, in terms of art, I would like to try sculpture.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And what else? No, pretty much. And the other thing I'd love to do in terms of my acting career, and I've just had a look at the CV of a former Sammy Davis in the Rat Pack, and he has certainly pursued that side, but I'd like to do some classical theatre before I as well.
Oh, so, is that Giles Terrera?
Yes.
Yeah.
He spelt it with a Z.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because he runs a theatre now, doesn't he? A theatre group, I believe. Isn't he an MBE as well?
Well, all I know is that he won the the Sweat Award for Hamilton.
Yeah.
And that he was a blinding Sammy Davis Jr. when I did one performance with the Rat Pack. It was a charity event that Mark Adams produced nearly 20 years ago.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think because he started that, Sammy started with Flying Music and went off on his own thing. And then he was replaced by George Daniel Long, who we've come to know very well. So it's a very small world, and it's quite interesting kind of talking to so many of you for the podcast, how all your careers are so kind of intertwined, and it's quite astonishing that you all at some point work together or know each other. I suppose that's the love of the business, isn't it? What you do.
Yes, and perhaps the fact that we're drawn to. I was just thinking about the likes of the Rat Pack and Judy and they are still venerated to this day. It's like their legend grows bigger with each passing year, and they are the old masters of performance, just like we had, the Renaissance people in the art world. They are the masters.
And do you think that's why that we're still drawn to them? Yeah. Okay. So your career, obviously, it takes a kind of a Judy segue, doesn't it? But how did you get to Judy? How did you become her, and what led you to that point?
Okay, well, I think I have Judy Garland to thank for inspiring me to pursue a career in show business in the first place. I've got two primary influences. So there is Judy, who came a little bit later in my life, but the first influence was my late father. So my father, Ido Martin, was a jazz musician, and he came over to London in the 1950s from Singapore, which is where he was born and raised. And he was of Filipino heritage. And I say that because his name, which was Ido Martin, had a bit of a Latin ring to it. And that was very helpful to my father, because he was nuts about Latin American music. He had met Xavier Cugat as a teenager when Xavier Cugat came with his actress wife, Abby Lane, who was a big Hollywood star. They came to the Raffles Hotel in Singapore, which was where my grandfather, Alejandro Martin, had a dance orchestra, and my dad, as a teenage musician, was playing trumpet. So my dad was fascinated by American culture, jazz culture, and particularly in his early 20s, it was Latin American. It was Tito Puente, and my dad came over to London and had a band which was called Ido Martin and his Latin Orchestra, and they were the resident band at a nightclub called the Côte d'Azur, which was a really hip place where all the young bright things in London would come and dance mambo's and cha-chas to my dad's music. And then in the West End, West Side Story was playing, and all the the dancers and the chorus would come to Dad's club after hours, and they'd be dancing there. So it was a very sort of cool era. But my dad had a wonderful record collection, and amongst my dad's records were Dean Martin, Steve Lawrence, a whole load of Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis at the Coconut Grove.
That's a wonderful LP,
Yes. And so my sister and I, we would be putting these vinyls on. We didn't know who these people were, but they were just fantastic. And I loved particularly the big band sound. So from a very early age, so probably even age 2, my dad would get me up and I'd be singing, and he'd be jamming with his jazz musician friends at home and serving up a very cool Sunday lunch with Far Eastern food on the table. And then the big epiphany that I wanted to go on stage or be a movie star, which hasn't happened, but that was like, oh my God, there are people on my little television screen who are doing these amazing things. And the revelation happened in 1969. There was a news bulletin, and the newscaster was announcing that the Hollywood legend Judy Garland had passed away in a London flat. And I'd never heard of this woman, but they put on this clip, and it was Judy Garland in Meet Me in St. Louis, just being vibrant and effervescent and leaning out of the trolley singing, clang, clang, clang with the trolley. And I just thought, oh my God, this woman, who is she? I need to know everything about her. I need to just absorb her energy and her story and her talent. And so from that age, I think any time I saw in the newspaper that there was going to be a Judy Garland film on the television, I was watching it. Of course, we're talking about the pre-videotape days, because I was a child of the 60s. And so when you watched it, that was it. You watched it and you didn't know when you were going to get to this again. Yes. So the next big stepping stone in my the cult of Judy Garland in my life was when I was about 10 or 11. I saved up a lot of my pocket money, and I bought this incredible album called Judy Garland, The Hollywood Years. Beautiful big red book with 2 records in it, MGM records. And it was all of Judy Garland's early work that she'd done with MGM when she was contracted till she left in 1950, and a beautiful book of photographs from films that she'd been in. And I just, I was just in heaven. I was drawing her, I was singing like her. That was it.
What was it about her though that attracted you? Because she had a very troubled life. Obviously had lots of kind of vices and demons that she struggled with. What was it about her as a person? Was it the person that attracted you to her, or was it what she represented?
Well, I mean, obviously as a young child, I knew that there was something a bit dark and murky about the circumstances under which she passed away. And there was this talk about her being addicted to drugs. And, in those days, for me, drugs were, my parents would take me up to London on a Sunday, and we'd go to Speaker's Corner, and we'd go to Piccadilly Circus. We'd see all the heroin addicts queuing up to get their medication from the big booths there. So, and it was kind of cautionary, and drug addicts were very unsavory outsiders of society. So this woman who was just incredible, like more talented than anybody that I'd seen on the television, for her to have an addiction, for her to have a flaw, if you like, it was kind of not unacceptable, but I suppose latterly I just admired her all the more, because it's like watching somebody who's got a disability overcome it, and no matter what, they go and they deliver. Because having read so many biographies about her now, I realise that even though we derived great joy from her performances, it was a struggle. It was a struggle mentally, and also a struggle emotionally and politically for her, because she was trapped. She was a woman who'd never, all her education had been received in show business from irresponsible adults, if you like, and she wasn't savvy about the ways of business. So she was ending up having to go out and perform to pay off ex-husband's tax bill, to pay managers, and to satisfy everybody but herself. So, it's very, very sad, when I think about her, and then I think about the likes of Dean and Frank and Sammy, who, they all had their challenges, but they were men working in a man's world, and they knew what was what, so they could fight back. But I think she just was on really, it was no surprise that she died at the age she did, and more of a surprise she didn't go earlier, because quite honestly, her cards were marked from the moment that she signed a contract as a child actor at MGM.
Yeah. I suppose they talk about, the studio system, I suppose, something that people don't know about these days, when your contract's just to one studio and that's it, you're with them for life in essence. And I suppose that you're right, she kind of was trapped in that world. And so when that became obvious to you as you became a young woman, you kind of understood what that meant with her vice and so on. Did that kind of empower you then to kind of want to do what she strived to do herself, that you knew she couldn't do?
Yes. I think there was part of me that was thinking that with all of my family support that I had, although my parents didn't have a particularly good personal relationship, they were both of them equally supportive, and they were never naysayers about me wanting to go into the career. And they never tried to exploit me either. I wanted to do this from a very young age, but my parents didn't want me to go to a stage school. They didn't want me performing until I was an adult. Even though perhaps they could have made some money if I was some kind of, freak prodigy that was go out there and do Judy Garland impressions and be very cute and successful. But I think, I think what she imparted to me was how much there was to get out of a part or a story. She was just extra. And so in terms of performing, I always think I've never quite done the perfect cabaret act. I really, that would be my dream, to be able to just perform in cabaret and have this act that I just go out and feel really confident about, and I know I'm going to fill the house with an audience. Well, she was a rock star in a time when rock stars were just coming through, and she could still fill a concert hall, she could fill up Carnegie, and she could fill up the Palladium with songs that were quite honestly probably pretty old-fashioned, but what she had was the gift that everybody who's a master, be they a singer, an actor, a sports person, or even a chef, they can take something that's not original, something they've done before, and every time they deliver it, it feels like new, feels like the first.
Yeah.
And I always say about Judy Garland is that, you know, every song that she sings is a 3-act play. Actually, there's another modern, I say modern performer, I mean, she's quite elderly now, but I was watching Gladys Knight. They were showing, did you see, on BBC4?
Yeah.
And they were showing, and I was just absolutely blown away. She sang I Will Survive, but it was not like anybody else's I Will Survive. It was just like this 3-act play. It was amazing.
Yeah.
She's got that, what I call the Judy factor.
So when you perform, when you sing, do you, obviously you tap into that mindset of the 3-act play in a song. So to you, it's not just a song, it's a story you're telling?
Yes, definitely. Probably more consciously now. I think when I was very young, as most young people are, it was all about technical prowess and oh, I've got a vibrato now, that sounds good, oh, I can reach that note, and in doing, actually, you know, I was an impressionist first and foremost in my early career, and that was because I didn't really have confidence in myself. I didn't feel that I had experience to bring to the table, and now as a mature performer, I think, you know, just tell the story and tell it with all of the, sorry to sound like a method actor, but it's just that thing of, you know, bringing all my memories and experiences into something that's maybe written by somebody else.
You look marvelous.
I think he looks terrible.
You look marvelous.
I feel marvelous.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too, Judy. Where are you going?
Well, I thought I'd just go and get my fan.
No, you come here.
Oh, how marvelous.
It's something I want you to hear, and you'll be listening?
Every word.
Honest? Promise?
I swear.
Okay. You must have been a beautiful baby. You must have been a wonderful child. When you were only starting to go to kindergarten, I bet you drove the other boys wild. And when it came to winning blue ribbons, I bet you showed the other kids how. I can see the judge's eyes as they handed you the prize. I bet you made the cutest bow. Oh, you must have been a beautiful baby. 'Cause baby, look at you now. I must have been a beautiful baby. You must have been a wonderful child. When you were only starting to go to kindergarten, I bet you drove the little boys wild. And when it came to winning blue ribbons, I bet you showed the other kids how. I can see the judge's eyes, and they slapped you with a prize. Bet you made the cutest bow. Oh, you must have been an adorable baby. 'Cause baby, look at you now.
That's for being so good. Oh, you're so
I was good. I was
You're
good.
So
I was
good. Yeah.
You enjoyed it?
Yes.
Every bit of it?
I loved it.
How come I got no flour?
Come with me. Thank you, Frank. Let me.
Let me.
Let me.
Let me live under your spell. Come on, keep doing it. Doing it. You're doing so well. 'Cause you do something to me that nobody
But I analysed it and I thought to myself, well, I do Judy Garland because she, in my mind, is still the greatest actress, singer, entertainer that ever lived. It's something to be celebrated that after all this time and after X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, people still want to see, they want to see the stars. They don't want to see those stars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of your job, if for the right phrase, is to keep this music going, because who's going to know about it in 10, 20, 30 years, you know? And it's kind of what we do at the DMA to keep Dean's memory alive. I mean, obviously Dean died far more recent than Judy did, but it's still the same era.
Yeah.
And we're kind of finding that people we're talking to, I mean, you and I are roughly about the same age, but people we're talking to, they're in their like late teens or they're older than us. And it fascinates me that that this kind of music, Judy and Frank and Dean, kind of cover such a huge spectrum of ages. And I am baffled and mind blown sometimes when I talk to a 19-year-old on a podcast that they've been collecting Dean since they were 10 or something, thinking, but it's 2023. Why not listening to wherever you're listening to, wherever's in the charts? And I just think it's, you know, your role as an actress and an ambassador for Judy is to, I suppose, get up there and tell people how wonderful she was and is.
Yeah.
One of the most iconic and I think important moments that's shared between both Dean and Judy is the Judy Garland television special in 1962 that was filmed for CBS. And Judy Garland was just having her big comeback. She was ill for some time and she was having a big comeback into television, like a lot of artists were at that time in the 1960s. And she was doing 2 television specials. And she was given a list of 10 potential artists to work with on this special, and she chose Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, which you can't argue with the success of that. They were very good friends with her personally, and they were very happy to join her on this endeavor. Taping started on January 5th of 1962. Beforehand, she ran it by them personally because, especially for Frank Sinatra, this was something that he wasn't going to get paid a lot for in comparison to what he was used to, and she was a little concerned about that, but he was more than happy to. And then one of the stipulations that she also included was that these would have to be taped at night because her voice was better at night. Taping finished up in the middle of January, and it was said that on the last day of taping, Judy worked until 1:30 in the morning and then went outside and signed autographs for her fans outside the studio until like 4 o'clock in the morning, which is incredible and just shows a testament to like how devoted she was to her fans and how appreciative she was of the support that so many people had given her over the years, and she was so loved by her fans. The Judy Garland Show CBS special aired on February 25th, 1962. The show won its time slot when it was broadcasting, and the special was the second highest rated show on air that season and was reported to be the highest rated special in CBS history up to that date. The show was later nominated for 4 Emmy Awards. It didn't win them, but it was a huge accomplishment for her in her professional career for this to be her comeback, to be nominated for 4 Emmy Awards, including Best Program of the Year, Outstanding Variety or Music Program, Outstanding Performance in a Variety or Music Program, and Best Art Direction. The reviews from the Los Angeles Times said, quote, "A beautiful hour with moments as memorable as any that television has ever given us." Television Guide also said, quote, "Nobody can match her." The Judy Garland Show special can actually be found on YouTube. You guys can check it out. I highly recommend it. It's an incredible performance by Dean, Judy, and Sinatra. It really showcases the talent that they had, and the way that they interacted with each other is just such a joy to watch. During the special, Judy Garland sings "You Do Something to Me" to both Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Dean sings "You Must Have Been a Beautiful Baby" to Judy, and it's just such a great number, and you can tell that he really has his heart into it, and he's really enjoying the performance and being able to be there with her. The last number of the show is by far the best. It's with the three of them together, and they are singing You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You. Judy is phenomenal. She's electric. She's making it known not only to her fans, but to the studios, to the record companies, to everyone who had written her off through one of her illnesses, like, I'm back, I'm better than ever. Dean and Frank, of course, being consummate performers and professionals and very supportive of Judy to begin with on a personal level. They know that this is her show. They know that this is about her, that they were invited to join her for this. So they know how to blend their voices. They know how to kind of keep a lower profile. Their numbers were over. They were in like a trio. So they did an incredible job of making sure to showcase her voice and her talent and really be supportive of her. In February of 1965, when Dean Martin was starting to prepare for his premiere episode of The Dean Martin Show for NBC, he had wanted Judy Garland to make an appearance, but this unfortunately did not happen due to time conflicts. The references that I used for this include Judy Garland, The Day-by-Day Chronicle of a Legend by Scott Schechter, Judy Garland, The Secret Life of an American Legend by Scott Shipman, and Memories Are Made of This, Dean Martin Through His Daughter's Eyes by Dina Martin.
This is the DMA podcast, for Dino, for you, for the good times.
I haven't had a break out of the industry, but I've been doing other things. I've been spending a lot of time on my comics and my graphic novels. Yeah. And then thanks to a fantastic new agent that I joined a year ago, it's just like been non-stop. So I did Panto last Christmas, just been out doing Menopause the musical. Mm-hmm. It was the hardest work I've ever done because there's so much traveling. But, you know, I loved being out there in front of an audience. And I'm not going to mention the numbers that I am now, but I think I'm pretty well preserved, and I've still got a lot of energy for a woman of my age. And so one has to think, especially as an actor, that if you don't take up the opportunities to perform when they're there, you know, in a few years, who knows whether they'll want you or whether you get to do it. So I won't say how much older, but I'm older than Judy was when she passed away. But given the life that she led, she looked like a little old lady, you know, sadly, when she passed away. It's 47. So I think if I decide that I want to go do Judy for even 10 years, I could do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I spoke to Mark Adams a couple of months ago for the podcast, and he's been playing Dean since 2004. And I spoke to him about this in 2010. And he said, one day he's going to hang up his wig and let somebody else younger do it. But he's still doing it. And, you know, and just like Mark Halliday, who does Veritas, he's been playing Dean since 2005 as well. I think he replaced Mark Adams, funny enough. And it's kind of, it becomes a career in of itself. And I suppose your career obviously has the music and the singing, the acting and the drawing and so on. But Judy will always kind of cut through that and always have something that brings you back to her. I think that's lovely that you saw the light in 1969, and now all these years later, you're still wanting to embody her.
I can say to myself, I'm hanging up my impressionist hat now. Enough's enough. And also, I always think about Judy saying, the one thing in life, you should never try and be a pale imitation of someone else. Always be the best version of yourself. And I hear that, but I also like to think, because I have been observing her from such a young age, and I do have this innate ability to, you know, to get into the voices. I don't regard it, it's not a technical skill. People have said, oh, you know, could you break it down? Could you teach me how to do impressions? Well, I can't. It's like an empathetic thing. It's like people that call themselves psychics will tell you, I can just hear voices, I see people, or they get, you know, I can't explain it, but I just know, and I know when I get it right.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people, no names mentioned, that have done Judy or played her, and I do get very jealous, and I get very sort of, well, what about, hang on, I do Judy, and I love to do Judy, and I've done Judy on the Royal Variety. Didn't you know that? So there's a bit of me that maybe that's Judy herself saying, All right, you don't want to do well. There's so many people that would love to do Judy Garland. So
Yeah. So you're quite protective of her then.
yeah,
Yeah.
I am, because I feel that I've read so much about her. I've watched her films. I've dreamt about her. She's given me notes. Honest to God, I remember her appearing to me in a dream, and Liza Minnelli was in the dream as well. And Judy was just saying to me, you know, watch Liza perform. She does, and she was basically telling me what I've just said about Judy, is that Liza, like her mother, puts everything into her performance. It's not an accident. It's not just something that's happened on the spur of the moment. It's studied. It's an art. It's almost as if I sort of think about the heritage. Judy came from this family of, her parents were, her father was a singer, mother was a pianist, her sisters were singers. They traveled around. They were like a circus family.
Yeah.
And Liza, daughter of Judy and Vincenzo Minnelli, this great visionary and artist. So it's all there in the DNA.
Yeah.
And they've learnt, their university was like MGM Studios and all the great people they work with.
Yeah. Have you ever met Liza?
No, I haven't. I'd love it. And I haven't met Lorna. Is probably more accessible, but I haven't met her either.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's kind of, they say about, meeting your heroes and how that can possibly sometimes go not the way you're expecting it to go. But I don't kind of agree with that, because I met Colin Baker for a start. I loved watching Doctor Who, growing up with him and watching him. Then also I wrote for him for Big Finish, which was like the one Doctor they could have given me. They gave me Colin, which is absolutely amazing. So I worked with him. And then I met Dean when I was 12 or 13. And growing up with him in the family, kind of giving us a call, phoning my dad on a Sunday night, and him sending his LPs over and pneumatics of his shows. And my sister and I have kind of said that, my sister's older than me, but we've both kind of said that he was like a distant uncle to us. I took away that the fact that he was just a normal guy who couldn't believe how much people loved him.
Yeah.
And was quite dumbfounded that people would bother to see him every night and buy his records and watch his NBC shows. And he wasn't kind of narcissistic about it or pompous about it. He just genuinely thought, well, I just sing a few songs. If you like it, well, I suppose that's benefit for me.
Yeah.
So what do you think Judy would have thought about her fans? And what do you think she would think now that people like you, all these years later, are still promoting her music and telling the world what kind of person she was? What would she think, do you think?
Oh, I think she would love it. I mean, I think she thrived on public attention and winning an audience over. She needed to be loved, and her fans just loved and adored her. And I think that's what helped her as well. It's like, no matter how reluctant she was to go on a stage, when she went out there and she felt this wave of love, she just wanted to give back. But I do think she probably would have been a lot happier now, let's think, probably she'd get some help.
Yes.
She'd be a celebrity, going to a therapy place or whatever, and we should get, deal with those demons.
Yeah.
And she'd be allowed to have a normal life. And if she put on a bit of weight, when she's resting between concerts, people would see it and they just love her all the more for it. And she'd probably, we wouldn't have to watch the blooming Kardashians, because it would be easy at home with her family, doing that. I think if she had her life to live over again, she would have spent more of it with her family. And I also think that she had an amazing intellect, and possibly she would have written her own songs. Definitely she would have written her autobiography. And she could have been a great straight actress. She'd be on a Netflix playing a crazy lady of some kind.
Have you thought about writing her biography yourself?
I have thought about, now I am midway, and of course I got distracted by a year of performing work, but I'm midway through my graphic novel about Conrad Veidt. He's another person who was a star in Hollywood for a very brief time. He died at the age of 50 in 1943, and the public would know him best for playing Herr Strasser Colonel Strasser in Casablanca. But he had an incredible career in the silent era. He was like, king of the Berlin night scene with all of the things that entails.
Yeah.
And he was the star of a film called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which was like the very first horror film. Yeah. And the reason why he would be, I think that my graphic novel would be attractive to a comic book audience, his face when he played the character Gwynplaine in The Man Who Laughs, which was a Carl Laemmle.
Yes, of course, which inspired the Joker.
Yes, exactly. What came that image. So there's a lot of visuals there. The man had beautiful, striking face, and he also played Jafar in my favorite version of The Thief of Baghdad. I just adore that, and it's a Powell Pressburger movie, and he was Michael Powell just absolutely adored Conrad Veidt. So there's all of that going on, but there's also a wonderful personal human interest story because he stood up to Joseph Goebbels. His third wife was Jewish, and he refused to divorce her, and he said that he wouldn't come back to Germany to make films because he didn't agree with the Nazi regime. So I think I've got all the ingredients there for a compelling real life character, and that's what I'm always looking for. I know we're talking about Dean Martin and Judy Garland, but there's Conrad Veidt, who, even though I'm taking a hell of a long time to do this graphic novel, I started it over 2 years ago, but I don't doubt that the man will be just as compelling, even if not more compelling, when I get to finish it. So
I think you were born in the wrong era.
Yes, absolutely. So, but going back to what you said, I am so with Judy. I had nothing in my mind about going out and doing my Judy Garland cabaret or doing a Rat Pack guest spot with David Alacy, who is my Frank Sinatra. He's the guy that I perform with the most. But I recently had an inquiry. I think I may be putting on those ruby slippers next year and be going out as Judy in some form of entertainment.
Okay.
And I was thinking that, maybe I should create some merch. So what I would like to do is I would like to create a comic. I think a graphic novel is probably a bit too ambitious with all the other things going on, but a comic which would be a fanzine. I think it'd just be, rather than a biography, because there's lots of biographies and you can offend people by saying the wrong thing. I think if I do something from my perspective about what it is about this lady that I love, and draw some wonderful pictures of her, because she, oh my God, to me, she's beautiful. She didn't see herself, she thought she was ugly and unattractive because she was surrounded by all these stunners at MGM.
These starlets, as they call them,
Yes.
Yeah.
But she had, this vitality. I did another comic about Clara Bow, the it girl of the 1920s, and she was sexy as hell, but she wasn't perfect by today's standards. She was curvy and she had wiry, wild red hair. But these, when you've got a character like Judy who just exudes this life force, and even her movements, I sort of think that when I get to performing as her again and really embodying her, I'd actually like to get a choreographer and just study some of her concerts, because she didn't just sing a song. She just, she was like this puppet. She was just kind of animated, and everything had a meaning and a gesture to it. So that's going to be really interesting. Again, going back to Judy, and the tragedy of her life was that she loved performing. There was no angle there for her. She just got out and this is what I do. But having to carry that celebrity thing, and having to, when she was at MGM, mold herself into something that she could never be. Really in life, people work best when they're content. And I think that that's the thing that, the people that want to make money out of anything in life, they fail to understand that throwing money at people and then whipping them and making them do things, it's never going to produce great art or anything done with art.
Absolutely. So going back then to you, How did you get from this little girl seeing Judy in 1969, becoming an impressionist, to becoming a fully rounded entertainer? Where did that come from?
Well, like so many people in our industry, it's like thought I was in control of things. I thought I knew how I was going to get from A to B. In my head, from when I was at school, I wanted to be an actress. What do you do if you want to be an actress? Well, you go to drama school, don't you? Well, I auditioned for Central School of Speech and Drama when I was 17, and I got to, the interview stage, and then they found out that I was very enthusiastic about my A levels, and as I went on and on about, oh yes, I'm doing English, Latin, and art, and yes, and then I think the penny dropped. No, these people are not interested in your A levels. They want to know that you are so dedicated to acting. Because when you come into the acting profession, chances are you won't be employed for most of it. So you've got to be passionate and dedicated. But actually, even then, I've always had my foot in all these different ponds. I wasn't prepared to kind of fully step into, although my heart was saying, oh my God, performing, that's what I want. So I ended up doing a degree in English and drama. So I used those A levels. They got me on the academic path. But you know what? All these years later, I sort of can understand why that makes total sense, because I write. I'm a very proficient writer. Okay, yeah, I'm doing comics and graphic novels, but you still got to understand how to express yourself.
Valid art, absolutely, yeah.
Articulately, and it still needs editing and all the rest of it. So, and also it requires research, and research has never ever intimidated me. I love to find out about things. So I was doing English and drama, and the first year that we were doing the course, I got into the group that were going up to the Edinburgh Fringe, and I was doing a classical play. I've just said to you, I want to do a classical play. So I was doing Women of Troy, but I used to take the mickey out of my fellow cast members. I could mimic anybody in the cast, and I could also mimic famous people. So there was an evening where all our students we were going to go to a place which was called the Student Fringe Club, and it was an open mic night, and everyone was going to do a cabaret, and they just kind of pushed me on and said, oh, Jessica, go and do your impressions. So I did my impressionist. I can't even call it an act because I was just making it up as I went along. And now, ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to be Julie Andrews, and sit down, children, and listen carefully as I sing. And I was Kate Bush singing Running Up That Hill. And I was Judy Garland as well, singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And in the audience was another student, and his name was Rory Bremner. And our audiences in the UK know precisely who I'm talking about, but for the worldwide audience, Rory Bremner to this day is our most famous satirical impressionist. He does a lot of political characters and sports people. And anyway, Rory was studying at another college at London University, and he just sort of lit on me and said, oh my God, you're a girl who does impressions. This is so wonderful, and you've got to join our review group. So my life didn't change overnight. I completed my degree, didn't see Rory again until I was doing a double act with another student, and we were going around various pubs on the Fringe circuit in London, trying to get our equity card again for the people in the States. You having this the SAG strike, the Screen Actors Guild. We have equity, which looks after the rights of actors. And back in the day, it was a catch-22 situation that in order to become a member of equity, you had to have proof that you'd performed and got paid and had contracts. So my dear friend and I were doing this god-awful, actually it was a very funny act. I have to say it was very funny, but it wasn't politically correct. So there you go. And we're talking about the 80s. So there was a lot of ooh in these pubs, these very right-on pubs. But in between the sketches, I would do impressions whilst my co-performer was changing the furniture and getting things ready. So I was sort of doing a quick, Happy birthday to you. Marilyn and a quick Hilda Ogden. And the act that went on just after us was Rory Bremner, this amazing student impressionist. And he recognized me from when we met at Edinburgh. And he just sort of said to me, he said, "Oh, can I take your number?" He said, "I think I've got something for you." And literally the next week, my life changed. Rory got me an interview with a producer who was doing a show called News Review, which was a topical sketch show on the radio. There's no money, but I didn't care. It was, experience. I was going to be on London Broadcasting, LBC Radio regularly. And I started putting together an impressionist act. I didn't want to be an impressionist. I still wanted to be an actress, and I just graduated, and I had just been told that even though I had a place at Webber Douglas Drama Academy, I'd auditioned. I had no funds to go because my parents couldn't afford to send me. So, it was a case of, like lots of things in life, necessity being the mother of invention. So I decided that I was going to do an impressionist act and get my experience that way. And then by some magic fluke, I'd end up getting back on the acting track. Well, that wasn't going to happen anytime soon, because I started doing the impressions. And probably about 6 months after I got this impressionist act together, we had a visit at a club that we were playing at. Rory was on the bill as well. And we were told that the script editors of Spitting Image, Doug Naylor and Rob Grant, were in the audience. And they summoned me over to their table. And they just told me that they loved my Barbra Streisand impression, and they would like me to audition for John Lloyd the next week. So I sang as Barbra Streisand, a cappella, in John Lloyd's office. And he took his time, actually, to be honest. He took his time. But in the meantime, so this was, the snowball was starting to roll. So I'm waiting to hear from John Lloyd. And instead of hearing from John Lloyd, I got a call from London Weekend Television and a director called Vic Finch, who said to me, "We've been given your phone number. John Lloyd has been talking to our producer, David Bell, and we're looking for a girl to complete our team of impressionists. We're going to be doing an impressionist sketch show." At that time, it was called Go For It. And by the time it actually went out in 1985, it was called Copycats.
Yes,
very well. Yes, and that was the start of my amazing career as a 20-something-year-old impressionist. I was starring on Saturday Night Telly with the Copycats, and then with Bobby Davro. It's just the two of us. And then the most incredible thing happened, because David Bell, God rest you in heaven, this great man of show business, he loved Judy Garland, and he invited me to do a 6-minute spot on the show Tarby and Friends, hosted by Jimmy Tarbuck. I'd never met Jimmy Tarbuck in my life, but suddenly I was a friend, and I was going to be a guest. And I did this 6-minute routine with the Alan Ainsworth Orchestra and 6 boy dancers, and Jack Jones saying to me, "Hey kid, that was really good, but I guess everyone's telling you that." I thought, "No, Jack, not Jack.
Tell me.
And if anybody's interested, that clip of me doing my Judy Garland routine, it's up on my YouTube channel, which is Jessica Martin, Alive in the Spotlight. So go see for yourself. But, that was my first appearance as Judy Garland. And then my next appearance was in the 1987 Royal Variety Show, when we did an amazing medley. It was the Copycats cast. We did a routine called The Ghosts of the Palladium. Leslie Brickers of Dr. Dolittle and Anthony Newley partnership. He wrote the lyrics, and Anthony Newley sang the song, and myself and the Copycats came out dressed as these people that have been the huge headliners at the Palladium.
Fantastic.
It was just incredible.
Did you feel it was a dream half the time? Did you take stock of what was happening, or did you just literally go with it?
No, I just went with it. It was like a sort of out-of-body experience. I mean, the whole of my early 20s, I did so much television. My life was in a television studio.
Yeah.
My life was in a television studio, and then it was, oh my God, I'm making money. And then suddenly I was, for a young person, I had my own place when I was 22, and then I had a house at 25. Everything happened really fast. But probably like Judy, I felt like something was missing. It's like, I know it's what I wanted, but they do say, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And it's like I couldn't feel my life. I almost wanted it to kind of slow down for me to savor it, for me to, get a boyfriend, have a bit of reality and so on. And then that wish came true in my early 30s. But the unfortunate thing is, it's like you only get 3 wishes. You can have this, but then you can't have that. Yeah. So I would say, and I have got absolutely no regrets, because I have got the most amazing life. I don't mean to say that to sound smug or big-headed, but I do think I've got everything. But my father, my late dad, always said to me, remember, Jessica, he said, you can have everything, but not at the same time. So, in my 30s, I've been on television in my 20s. I've been starring in Me and My Girl in the West End. That happened when I was 26. It's just like everything that a lot of people in our business, they strive for. And most often, if they get to it, they probably don't get to it till their mid-30s. I sort of crammed everything before I was 30. Yeah. And then it was time. I thought, no, I just want to have my life. And I'm very close to my parents have gone, but I still have my sister surviving. She's got 4 grown-up daughters. They live in Portsmouth. Yeah. I have a half brother. You know this, Elliot, because you've read my book, but I've got a half brother who's Icelandic. Yeah. And all of his things. So I'm a family-minded person, and I have my own family. So I'm married to Nigel. We've been married 26 years, and I've got my 2 grown-up children who are both in the industry now. So,
fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
The family business continues.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the Martin legacy continues. Absolutely. Another Martin legacy. So are you happiest on stage or in a studio?
On stage.
On stage. I thought you were going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have, I have 2 recurring nightmares. One is that I'm at school and that I haven't done my A-level revision and I suddenly have to catch up with whole year. And the other one is about, because there was a time in my career and people still ask me, say, weren't you supposed to have your own TV show? And there's this dream I have that I've got one of the old producers from back in the day, like he's come to visit me saying, you know what, we want to give you and Bobby a show and we're going to pilot it. And we're going to give you, and it's like, it's all happening again. And I wake up and think, no, darling, that's years ago. That's not coming back. It's not going to happen. Although I haven't given up, it might be.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't sound regretful for things you haven't done.
No, you see, I did. It's like you do it. You go there, you get the T-shirt, and even just like I've mentioned, I've just been on tour in Menopause Musical, and I loved every moment of being on stage. But I didn't love all the other stuff. I didn't love traveling,
suitcase living. Yeah,
it just that was hard, especially because I think of all my life for show business. You know how people are about whatever their life is, you always find the positives, and you don't look for the weaknesses, you celebrate. Well, for me, because I've got my family life and I've had things very much the way I want them to be. It's like I've been in charge of my day-to-day routine. Today I'm going to do some work on my comics, or today I'm going to do, or next week I've got a cabaret. So it's been a nice ad hoc. And then suddenly it's just like the old days, but I've got a contract and I'm doing a show and it's a 6-month thing, and I've got no time to think about anything but the show. So it's like a bit of a culture shock.
So you're having a bit of some downtime for the next few weeks.
Having some downtime, and then I've got Panto coming up at Christmas, which I'm really excited about.
Well,
that's going to be, it's Mother Goose, and it's at the Cheltenham Everyman Theatre.
Okay.
And I'm going to be performing with this amazing person who people won't, unless they've been to see the particular circus, but there's a circus called Gifford Circus, which travels around the country, and it does sort of like stately homes that got big grounds or farms and stuff. Yeah. But it's a beautiful, when I say old-fashioned circus, but that book, Something Wicked This Way Come.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like there's something a little bit kind of off kilter and spooky and entrancing about it. And there's this incredible clown called.
Well, that's you and circuses all over, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, with Doctor Who. And I mean, and the other weird coincidence is, like, my panto that I did last Christmas at Richmond was called it was Goldilocks, and I played an evil circus owner. So, you know, hello.
All comes around. It all comes around.
It all comes around. But
and of course, you played Mags, didn't you, for Big Finish?
Yes.
Mags being your Doctor Who character, yeah.
Mags for my Doctor Who. And again, it's Judy brought me into the world of Doctor Who because Nathan
Turner, yeah. Who else?
I mean, was he camp? Well, come on, you know, does Doctor Who have eternal life?
Yeah.
He loved Judy Garland, and he and his partner Gary had seen me doing this routine on Tarby and Friends, and I think they just wanted me in the show.
Yeah.
They were going to make it happen no matter what. But the fact that I was, if you like, a character actress, I'd embodied Judy Garland. They wanted me to embody a performer who changes into a werewolf.
Well, that was the joy of J&T, wasn't it? He kind of saw the most weirdest link, like Richard Herndl. He saw as the first Doctor for the 5 Doctors, but he saw him in Blake 7 wearing a very odd-looking loincloth. But he suddenly saw a William Hartnell-esque type person. So he had a very kind of good eye for what he wanted. He knew what he wanted.
Yes, he knew what he wanted, and he saw the future because he was the first one to sort of start these conventions, which are just, you know, thank God for conventions and thank God for DVDs, because that storyline in Doctor Who, it was a job at the time. You know, it's like everything else, all the other great things were happening. It was like conveyor belt. Oh, I've got this coming up next. Oh, great, Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who, but I didn't think too much about it. And now it's just like, it's just opened up a whole doorway into another world of possibilities and links.
It's fascinating because when I did mine, I suddenly kind of had a link to all these other people that I'd only kind of ever known about or read about or heard about. All of a sudden, they became friends, as it were. And it's quite a bizarre environment working or having had involvement in Doctor Who. It never quite leaves you. And I know I did my little bit once 15, 20 odd years ago. But it doesn't leave you because Kenny Smith says hello, by the way.
Oh,
so it just never leaves you, and your website has got like a nice big spot of Doctor Who on it, even though it was like 4 weeks work for you in 30 years ago. It's shadow cast long, just like Judy's does.
Yes.
Yeah. So what can we expect of you? So you're potentially coming back with the Ruby Slippers possibly next year. Yes. Is that something else you're going to be doing as well, or is that what you're going to be focusing on possibly?
Well, I'm obviously up for work all the time, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I shall be up for. Let's see if they happen. But if it is just doing Judy, you know, various things, that suits me because, as I mentioned, I have got a graphic novel, which I really would like to get done by the end of next year. I didn't mention, so I wrote a novel over a year ago.
Like you do.
A novel, and actually I want to write another one. It's sort of like it could be a series, and I'm thinking, do I go? I'm still waiting to hear some published things, but I'm thinking, I think if I want to get published, whether it's through a mainstream or even myself, I think you've got to show a body of what, you know, because hopefully people will like it, and then they'll want more. You're just going to kind of keep it going. So I think you've got to have a game plan. I think one, you can call yourself a budding novelist. 2, I definitely am a novelist. But yeah, lots of things that I want to do, Elliot. Too many things.
Absolutely, and still lots of time to do them, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, Jess. Absolute pleasure to talk to you after all this time.
Now it's time for a selection of the best comments from our Facebook page.
Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody falls in love somehow.
Here we go.
Isabel writes, Dean was a brilliant entertainer, a fantastic crooner, and a great actor. When it came to the more classical and serious songs, like The Story of Life, Dean sang from the heart with pure emotion. I grew up listening to Dean and watching his films. Here in the UK, we didn't get to hear all of his fabulous recordings or watch every great show and celebrity roast, but I'm just so glad we get to enjoy Dean now more than I did as a young girl, thanks to this great fan page. Charles replied to Isabel's comment, I couldn't agree more. First heard Dean singing Inamorata when I was 17 now, and now I am 85 and still listening. Saw him twice many years ago, London Palladium and Apollo Victoria. Top entertainer of all time. Keith writes in regards to the song, a beautiful song and one of my favorites. This clip is a wonderful example of how Dean takes the melody and sings it a little differently. I always loved watching live clips to see if he'd phrase something in a new way or maybe sing a note low or instead of high or vice versa. He never ceased to make each performance something unique. Marianne from Australia writes, love what you do. It's so nice to keep him going. Love his Matt Hill movies. Must watch again. Michael writes, man, I just can't get enough of that man. Always brings a warm smile to my face. Miss him so much. Regina from Pennsylvania writes, we still recite Dean's Old Chestnut. I think I'll go to the couch whenever we run out of steam and need a healthy sit down. A fantastic guy who touched so many of our lives in simple little ways. 100% genuine. Candy writes, I've listened to him a lot on his TV show where he might be cracking a joke before and during songs. And he comes back into the song in pitch every single time. I always wondered if he had perfect pitch because I've never heard him miss a note. George writes, the door is still open to my heart is, in my opinion, one of his best and one I keep going back to again and again. Also, it's great to finally be part of this group, especially because as a 16-year-old from the UK, it's sometimes difficult to find people who appreciate Dino as much as I do. Susan writes that the door is still open to my heart. She always associated with her wedding. She said that they were married October 11th, 1964, and the song came out about 2 weeks before. Such beautiful words, sung by a beautiful man with a smooth, sexy voice. Rest in peace, Dean.
Thank you, Cindy. And now we have part 2 of the article written by Bernard in 1968. Thomas, over to you.
Dean loves to sit at home watching television. He loathes parties and will do anything and everything he can to avoid going to one, even if it is a close friend who has sent the invite. He hates travelling as well and will arrange as much as possible his work to be done near his home. Dean is very proud of the 7 children, but is very strict. They had a party once at the house and Dean telephoned the police to say he was a neighbour complaining about the exceptional noise coming from the Martin household. The police immediately came and closed the party down. Dean then went to bed. Generally though, Dean is easygoing in his home life, much the same as he appears on the screen, even though he has an ulcer. He doesn't know how he got that, because he is seldom annoyed, but when he is, he just kicks things round the house a bit. He never takes it out on the children or his wife. Jeannie seldom appears in public, although she did appear on Dean's Christmas TV show in 1967, singing carols with the children and the Sinatras. Some of Dean's close friends say he is too generous to certain so-called admirers. Whilst he is truly sincere, he has helped people in many ways who are not too sincere themselves. This is something that Dean is more cautious with now. Only his real associates will help him if necessary. I am personally very proud of Dean's success. He is a giant in show business now, and it is very pleasing to see this. There are some who say that Dean has made a comeback, but I always say he never went away to make a comeback. In my opinion, Dean has gradually progressed from a good singer in 1943 to a completely versatile entertainer in 1968, his 25th anniversary. It takes someone unique and supreme like Dean Martin, born June 7th, 1917, to be a popular personality for a quarter of a century. No one in the business can be so sincere and genuine like him. Tell this to Dean Martin and he will never agree with you that he is good. In fact, he'll say the opposite, that he hasn't a voice at all and that he just gets by in his acting. When watching him at rehearsals for films, TV or recording, you can see that he is just a bit nervous, even after 25 years. But as I said before, he just concentrates on the job in hand, and the end product is more than excellent. Although perhaps Dean is somewhat shy in certain ways, surely a rarity in this business, he puts over a bold, professional confidence in every part he plays in a film. His singing is the ultimate in sincerity, and his cabaret and TV presentation is of the finest. Thousands upon thousands of people agree with this remark. They must do, otherwise Dino would not be at the top of his profession. Now one of the richest men in America, he can pick the best of the crop in his career. With his combined production companies and many other business ventures, Dean's income exceeds even Sinatra's. He believes in financial investment, says there's no need to buy 250 suits for himself, even though he could well afford to, because you can only wear one at a time. I like a good selection of clothes, remarks Dino, but why bother with too many? Like my cars, I've only two. What would I do with any more? Possibly a unique attitude for someone as powerful as Dean, even though he has really got more than two suits. But isn't he unique in himself? In this feature distributed exclusively by the International Dean Martin Club in 1968, we surely have written about our own star, a man whom we are proud to represent right around the world. He has been around for 25 years now, and every type of work he has attempted in this rat race of show business, he has come out tops and shown that he can do all of those things and do them well.
The clown with his pants falling down, or the dance that's a dream of romance, or the scene where the villain is mean. Entertainment, the lights on the lady in tights, or the bride with the guy on the side, or the ball where she gives him her all. That's entertainment. The plot can be hot, simply teeming with sex. A gay divorcee who is after her ex. It can be Oedipus Rex, where a chap kills his father and causes a lot of bother. The clerk who is thrown out of work by the boss, who is thrown for a loss by the skirt, who is doing him dirt. The world is the stage is a world of entertainment. You see on the screen a swain getting slain for the love of a queen. Some great Shakespearean scene where a ghost and a prince meet and everyone ends in mincemeat. The gag may be waving the flag that began with the Mr. Cohan hip hooray. The American way, the world is a stage. The stage is a world of entertainment.
And that brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you so much again to Jessica for joining us. Please visit her website, jessicamartinofficial.com, and also follow her YouTube channel, Jessica Martin, A Life in the Spotlight. And of course she'll be on stage at the Everyman Theatre in Cheltenham, UK for the Christmas season in Mother Goose. For tickets, please visit everymantheatre.org.uk. Cindy, Marisa, Ron, Thomas and myself will be back next time, but in the meantime, please head on over to our official Facebook page or subscribe to our mailing list at deanmartinassociation.com/contact to receive your free copy of our brand new relaunched newsletter. It'll actually be issue 416 because we've been doing this since 1960, and it's now free to subscribers only, and it will be available from the 13th of October. Read online or download as a PDF.
You've been listening to the DMA Podcast, a Shaken Not Stirred and Memory Hive production for the Dean Martin Association, produced by Kent Edens and Elliot Thorpe. The DMA Podcast is copyright Memory Hive Productions and is a not-for-profit project. There are no financial incentives nor fees payable to any contributor, guest, or performer.
Click on our logo to subscribe to the Dean Martin Association's official YouTube channel. Please also visit deanmartinassociation.com. Why not also subscribe to our podcast on Spotify? Search the Dean Martin Association Podcast.